It's about 20 of, so I'm a little early. But like I just gave y'all a little tidbit, we got some things we need to discuss. We got some things that give me one split second, folks. Yeah, we got some things that I want to talk to y'all about. And I'm sure you all will want to talk to me about those same things, right? I want to hear what I got to say because I'm sure y'all might have some comments and some feedback for me. So, of course, as always, we're going to start with some scores and then we get into what we need to get into today. All right. So, in Major League Baseball yesterday, the Marlins and the Rays edged them out. They take that 3-2. The Brewers get blanked by the Padres 1-0. The Rangers get by the Nationals 4-2. Pirates beat the Phillies 2-1. The Astros fall to the Guardians 4-2. The Cubs get blanked by the Tigers. The D-back from 4-0, I'm sorry. The D-backs fall to the Reds 4-2. The Royals get by the White Sox 7-5. The Blue Jays get doubled up by the Twins 6-3. The Dodgers take the game over the Cardinals 7-3. The Mets beat up on the Rockies 13-5. The Orioles and the A's take that at home 5-1. The Braves fall to the Giants 4-3. The Mariners get by the Angels 3-2. And the Red Sox 11, the Yankees 7. In the UFL, they are in the semifinals, I believe. The Defenders and the Battlehawks. The Defenders take that game 34-18. And in the second game, or the other game, the Panthers 44, Stallions 29. In the WNBA yesterday, the Sun and the Mystics take that 104-67, and the Lynx get by the Wings 81-65. In the NBA Finals. Y'all know where we are. Y'all know what goes on. Y'all know what it does, right? NBA Finals. We got. Who do we have in the NBA Finals? Who? Who do we have in the NBA Finals? The Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I told people that I saw OKC bouncing back and winning that game 2, which they did. My first instinct was that they would win by double digits, which they also did. But that was one of the things that I saw that I made note of, and I talked about it here on the show maybe a couple of weeks ago, that I noticed about OKC since I've been able to see them somewhat at length during the playoffs. I was impressed, one, with their swagger, if you will, for them being such a young team with their swagger. I also was impressed, and I said this with the fact that when they square up, knuck down, and get down and dirty, they can play defense with the best of them, if not slightly better than some of the best of them. And we know that they can score the ball. That was like a given. We know that. The other thing I said was in reference to their leader, the MVP, the reigning NBA MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. What I said were some things about him. And I had said this again last week, and my guy, Richard Drummond, my classmate, a good friend, chimed in and he agreed with what I said. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, don't misconstrue my words. What I said was the mannerisms that Shai displays right now somewhat remind me of MJ and Kobe. And again, I'm not saying that I'm comparing him to those two players. I'm saying their mannerisms, what they did, what their approach was to the game is a lot of what I see in Shai. Okay. And I'm sure he was kind of the spearhead in them bouncing back. But don't get me wrong. All right. I don't think that they took that for granted. I don't think that they are taking the Indiana Pacers for granted because the Indiana Pacers are good. It's no reason to take them for granted. And I think this is going to be a good series. I still believe that OKC will win it in 6. Okay, but now we can possibly push to that 7 since OKC now has to get one in Indy. And they'll be trading. They'll be flying to Indy soon for games 3 and 4 soon. But OKC, again, like I said, is one of those teams where they have the right pieces, if you will, and they have the right mentality. One could argue the way that game one played out. One could argue that the coach, and I don't know his name right offhand, the coach of OKC got out coached by Rick Carlisle, and I was one that I could agree with that. But again, they got that lead again, so they know, like they have the confidence, they know it that they can get up on this team. It's just a matter of them staying focused and making sure that they sustain and don't allow Indiana to get back into the game with those runs like they did in game one. They didn't do that in game two. So now that's a little bit more confidence for OKC. And so now they know, yeah, we can get to these guys. They can come back, but we know we can stop them. We can beat them. We can still beat them. So we'll see what happens in game 3 and 4, because both of those games are going to be in Indy. All right. So if you are tuned in, if not, folks, you know where I'm at. I am live Instagram at SportsRap CEO. Also, heat100radio.airtime.pro is the link. If you go into my bio on Instagram, you can see that there. If you can't actually watch everything, you can get the link there. So a little bit of news and some things for you. The Suns have hired the Cavs assistant Jordan Ott as their next head coach. The Knicks have asked for permission, or will ask for permission, to speak to Jason Kidd. Aaron Rodgers has signed with the Steelers on a 1-year deal. We're going to talk a little bit about the new All-Star format in a second. The reports are out that the Celtics are actively taking trade calls on Drew Holiday. Nick Chubb reportedly is expected to sign with the Texans. The Packers are set to release star cornerback Jair Alexander. And the Skies, Vandersloot, I forget her first name, Carrie Vandersloot or whatever, but whatever. She's out for the season with the torn ACL. So, going back real quick, you saw I just told you reports are out that the Celtics are seriously taking trade calls for Drew Holiday. I talked to some people and I talked to some guys that I know we talk basketball, some Boston Celtics fans, some friends that I know that are Boston Celtics fans. And we've come to the conclusion that the team is going to have a different look. And one of the first names that popped up is Drew Holiday. I think there might be a couple more that may end up being traded if things happen the way that people expect. But nonetheless, we look at Boston and we saw how they lost. We saw the rate that they shot 3-pointers. That team is definitely going to look different. You know, we talk about the Sixers going to look a little different. Boston's going to look a little different as well. Just don't know how it's going to happen or what is going to happen, but you know, who they move and what they get back in regards to that. But they're going to look different as well. So now that we are in the NBA, we talked, and we have been talking like the past couple seasons, about the All-Star game and the All-Star game format. It went from bringing it back to East versus West. Then we went into the schoolyard play where the players get picked. And we kept going into that. And then this year they had this little tournament thing where they had commentators pick. So this coming season, all right, when the new 25-26 season starts, the All-Star game in February of next year will be a USA versus the world. So for me, I don't know, Coach Rich, thanks for tuning in. I don't really know how I feel about it. Actually, you know what? That's not true. I do know how I feel about it. I think it might be something good to see. The only problem I have with it now is the fact that you've been changing it the last couple of years. Like, get some consistency, make a decision and keep it the same. And other than this U.S. Versus the world, which I think will be good because I talked a little while back about how the world players have caught up, the European players have caught up to the USA, the national, the natural USA born players. But one of the other things I said is take it back to the way it was in the old school. Just get the top 15, 12 in the West to go against the top 15 or 12, whatever, in the East, and just do that. Take it back to the old school. All this extra stuff and having all these different challenges and everything in it, it's taken away from it. Hence the reason that they've been trying to adjust it and make things different for the past couple of years. I think if you just leave it alone, you would get some better ratings. You would get more viewership, because now a lot of people don't look at the All-Star weekend. They wait until Sunday to see the game, and then they probably don't even watch all that because they see the score, how it gets, and it's just not good basketball. But nonetheless, all right, projected rosters. I'm not going to give you start. I'm just going to give you names for the world team. SGA, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama. Others: Jamal Murray, Dyson Daniels, Jonathan Kuminga, Franz Wagner, Pascal Siakam, Alperen Sengun, Lauri Markkanen, and Ivica Zubac. All right, for the USA team, projected: Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Donovan Mitchell, Paolo Banchero, Jaylen Brown, Karl Anthony Towns, and Bam Adebayo. So this is just one list. I saw a couple other lists with some different names on it. I saw one with Joel Embiid for the U.S. team. Didn't see one with him for the world team, but everything that I saw had him on the U.S. team. But listen, if they were to go with these rosters, what I just gave you, I think the game could be good. But again, we just have the U.S. versus the world. We still don't know 100% what the format is. Is it just going to be a all-star game, like NBA regulated all-star game, or is it going to be where they took a page from the basketball tournament and have an Elam ending where they get a projected score and the first team to that score or to that number wins? How are they going to do it? In my opinion, like I said, I feel like this could be something good to see. I feel like it should just be a regular 4-quarter game, like a 4-quarter, 12-minute NBA All-Star game. I think that would be the best for it. I think that would give them better viewership because we have seen in the past certain All-Star games where it got to the point where dudes got down in the dirty in the end and it was like, oh, we can win. Look at that. What was that 2000 All-Star game? Steph Curry, AI. Guys felt like, oh, we can go out and win this. And they went and played. There have been other games where players have decided, okay, we can get this game, so let's stop playing around. Let's go get this game. All right, we know it's an all-star game, but let's go get it. So, again, we don't exactly know what format it is, but we do know it's going to be set up for the USA versus the world, which I think could be a good thing. Like I said, I would have to see what kind of format they're playing. Like I said, I don't want to see it with that Elam ending. I just want to see, you go USA versus the world. Okay, great. Then let's just do what we do. 4 12-minute quarters, have some fun, and see who wins. That's what I would do. Not sure if that's exactly what's going to happen in the official NBA ruling, but that's what I would do. And again, like I said, I think that would keep the viewership. That would give you more viewership because it wouldn't be like a gimmick. It would be like people are going to watch the best from the world and the best from the USA. Just like we used to watch the best from the West and the best from the East, and they just play and we see who wins. For that moment, going to the second half of the season, one conference would get bragging rights. Going into it this way, USA players or the world will have bragging rights. But just let them play. Now, don't try to put a gimmick on it. None of that. 4 quarters, 12-minute quarters. Let them have a little bit of fun. In the end, we'll see what happens. All right? That's what I feel. That's what I feel like should be ready for the All-Star game, because if not, you're going to lose viewership once again, like you always have. You have been losing viewership, and that'll happen again if you try to add a gimmick to it and add some things to it. So just like I said, let it be USA versus World. We know what's going on. Just give it a regular game. All right, regular game. No gimmicks, none of that, all that jazz. So moving along, and we're going to stay basketball for just a little bit longer. All right, just a little bit longer. We're going to stay basketball. Now, I mentioned to you in my little opener. If you didn't see it, you can go back to Instagram, come off the live, and go check it. But anyway, I said I brought something to the table that I wanted to talk about. Coach Rich, I hope you're still there. You can listen to this and maybe give me some of your insight. I'm looking for my guys to tune in. Rich, Rad 211, Rad, my guy, Jake Blake. I'm waiting for you guys to tune in. So hopefully you'll jump in soon while I'm going through this. So what I found, okay, and again, this goes into the stuff that I had been talking about the recent playoffs, where I've seen so many 3-pointers being shot. And I told you how offenses are starting outside the 3-point line. I stopped a game one time. It was a Boston Celtics game, and I stopped it. And I showed my friends. I said, look, there's nobody in the paint. The whole offense is being run around the 3-point line. All right. So now they want to, and it's here recently within the past couple of years, we've gotten to this positionless basketball, so to speak. Like we see on the All-Star voting ballots now, it's front court and back court. It used to be your 5 positions: point guard, your shooting guard, your small forward, power forward, and center. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, that's what it used to be. So in that, I saw something and they broke down the 5 positions of basketball, which ones I just gave you: the point guard, the shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and the center. And it goes into their responsibilities, or the responsibilities of these specific positions. So we're going to go through them. We're going to talk a little bit about them. And if you're tuned in, like I said, at SportsRap CEO on Instagram, jump in, comment. All right. Point guard. And these are the responsibilities. Point guard is to run the offense, distribute the ball, maintain court vision, direct traffic, and control game tempo. So, I agree with all of those. I do. Your point guard is your extension of the coach on the floor. It's going to run that offense. He's going to get, he or she, like speaking, this is basketball, so we can go male or female. So he or she is going to get everybody in the right position. They're going to distribute the ball, so that means they will learn and end up knowing where people like the ball to get easy shots, where people like the ball when they're in the post or different areas of the court. All right, they're going to maintain court vision, which means they have their head on the swivel. Everybody on the court should have their head on the swivel, but mainly the point guard, because you're the lead. All right. You need to maintain court vision. As far as with the offense, you need to identify mismatches. You need to identify picks. All right. You need to identify how to get your players open. You need to identify the defensive scheme and the way that they're playing. That is your court vision. All right. You have to direct traffic. You need to get people in the right positions. Again, like I said, get them in the right positions to help on defense. Get them in the right positions to help the flow of the offense. Get them in the right position to get their shot. Get them in the right position to get an easy shot. Point guard. And then control the game tempo. You, the point guard, is supposed to be able to decipher the game, read what's going on, and know when to play up tempo, know when to slow it down, and know when to get in transition and all of that other kind of stuff. That is your point guard. So for that point guard, again, I have no issues with everything that's there. I totally agree with what was said. Again, run the offense, distribute the ball, maintain court vision, direct traffic, and control game tempo. Moving along to the two, as we used to say, the two guard or shooting guard. There's long range shots. They're a slasher to the basket. He arguably and usually the best overall shooter, and they defend on the perimeter. I agree with that. The one thing I do just have a little question mark about, and it's probably because this is might be in reference to today's game, that long range shot, which is in the game now. So yes, ideally that was what you wanted your two guard, your shooting guard, to do. And again, like he said, it's the best, arguably the best shooter on the team. Right, it could be possible, or the small forward could also be the best shooter, but more than likely, your shooting guard is the best shooter on the team. Hence, it's called the shooting guard. All right. They defend the perimeter. They have a little bit of length. They're a little bit bigger usually than the point guard. Okay. And they have that wingspan. They can cover and guard people on the perimeter. Play some defense. Get up in people's jerseys and play that passing lane with their length. All right. The small forward. The small forward. They have a balanced role. They score and defend. They rebound. They match up with the opponent's toughest players a lot of times, and they adapt to the situations on the court or in the flow of the game. I agree with these as well. Okay, the small forward is definitely going to have a balanced role, and then it goes into scores and defense. So your small forward can shoot a little bit. He can score the ball. He can also defend, like your two guard. Small forward is a little bit more on the rebounding side, so they got to get down and dirty on that other side of the ball. They usually match up with with the toughest opponent on the opposite team, or they match up with the opponents. Okay, and then they adapt to the situations. Your small forward is the player on the floor outside of the point guard who can adjust tempo, if you will. Okay, they will be able to read and see what they need to do. Okay, as far as, like I said, scores and defense. So and then when it goes into coincides with the adapts to situations, they decide, or they have to figure out in the flow of the game, should I be scoring now or should I be focusing more on the defensive end? Your power forward, your four, they score in the paint. They set screens. They crash the boards. They provide the physicality on the court, and they're usually a strong rebounder. Okay? Scores in the paint. Now, not so much. I agree with it. Like overall power forward, I agree with that. Power forward. The basketball that I grew up on, that was where the power forward got some points in the paint. Now with all these stretch threes and stretch fours and stretch fives, you got power forwards that want to shoot 3-pointers and stay on the perimeter. All right, yes, they do set the screen. You can get into the four with the pick and roll. If you don't use the five, you get the pick and roll with the four or the five. They crash the boards. Yeah, they're usually free, so they run to the boards. They provide that physicality. So they get down and dirty on the defensive end. They get physical with players, all right? Let people know that there's somebody there. And then they're usually a strong rebounder. All right? At number five, your center. They protect the rim. All right? They control the paint. They rebound. They set hard screens, and they're usually the tallest player. So, with that being said, and then they add that little tidbit in there, the tallest player, usually correct. But now in today's NBA, you don't really have that. Again, you got 5 centers that shoot the 3. You still have some centers that protect the rim, yes, in today's game. You still have some that can control the paint. It's one that plays here. When he's healthy, when he has his mind right, Joel Embiid is that type of player. He does protect the rim, and he can control the paint. Right? And a lot of times he is the tallest player on the court. So those are your positions. Again, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as we used to break them down. But again, a lot of that has changed now. But if you are tuned in, give me a comment. If you see this later, comment on what I said, comment on what you heard, and let me know what you think about each position. Was there anything left off that could have been added under any one of these positions? All right, I'm open for it. Let's talk about it. We might be able to bring it back again, and I can bring back what people added in if there's nothing on these lists that you agree with or whatever, or if it's things that you feel like you should add into it. All right. Keep that in consideration, and we'll talk about that, and we'll get into that if and when you guys submit your list or your pieces that you think might have been omitted from the list of any player. Again, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. All right. So that being said, we know what just happened over the week. We've been talking for a long time about these NIL deals, name, image, and likeness, which has been getting some young people paid. It's been getting some young people paid. Okay. Long time coming. But now, just recently, the bill was passed, a landmark settlement, where now colleges and universities can pay. They can pay their athletes. Got to give some applause for that as well, too. Got to give some applause for that. All right. Now, this comes a long time in the making. Long time in the making, folks, I tell you. The way this settlement is going to work now, there are two major parts, all right, of the settlement. One that looks backwards and one that looks forward. Looking backward, all right, the schools have agreed to pay $2.75 billion to former college athletes who played before 2021. So they're really trying to like make this a thing and do right by some of these college athletes. All right. That's the year that the 2021 is the year that the league changed the rules to allow, 4 years ago to allow the NIL deals. All right. Men's football and basketball will earn the largest payments, with prominent athletes who played at major schools earning as much as 5 or 6 figures. So people that have played from like 2016 up to 2021 are going to get some retro money. The Sixer says, I'm looking at it now, back pay, the $2.8 billion settlement includes back pay for athletes from 2016 to 2024 who were previously barred from receiving revenue. All right, so that means if you didn't have an NIL deal in any of that, you will get some back pay. All right. The settlement also has a salary cap, if you will. All right. It's initially set at $20.5 million right now, but it could rise as high as $33 million in about 10 years. All right. New roster limits. Schools may grant as many scholarships as they like, but they're going to put a limit on the team size and the number of players that they have on the teams. But you can still give as many scholarships as you want, they say. All right. So athletes are also going to be still allowed to hold on to their NIL deals, which they shouldn't be able to take them from them anyway, because it's those athletes and those athletes' name, image, and likeness. So this is a great thing for NCAA. All right. So the key details again: the direct payments. Colleges can now directly pay athletes from their own funds, marking a significant shift from the previous reliance on name, image, and likeness deals. All right, which they can still keep. Okay, which they can still keep, absolutely. All right, the back pay. All right, again, like I just said, $2.8 billion settlement includes back pay for athletes from 2016 to 2024 who were previously barred from receiving revenue. The annual cap. Schools can share up to $20.5 million with athletes annually. Roster limits. The settlement also addressed concerns about roster limits, with modifications allowing schools to designate student athletes who would not count against these limits. And implementation. The new rules are in effect, and schools can begin sharing revenue with athletes as early as July 1, the beginning of a new fiscal year. So, what do we think about that? How do we feel about this? I am happy for this settlement. I was one in favor of athletes getting paid. And for me, it goes back all the way back to the Ben Simmons documentary, where he brought up a great point about how He couldn't understand why he could not get any revenue from people on campus wearing his jersey, but the school got all of that money. But it's his name, and he's the one out there working. The school ain't out there working at practice. It's him. So we move on. Now they have this settlement in place. And again, like I said, it's not taken away from the name, image, and likeness deal. I think this settlement, and this is just my thoughts, I don't know if this is really the case, but it could be. But I think this settlement came about because there was so much money being spread around with these NIL deals, where you've got, perfect example, Cooper Rush, all right? Cooper Flag. Everybody was saying he's going to be the number one pick coming out, yada, 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 all of that good stuff, right? Yeah, we got that. At one point, there was a little skepticism. He was thinking about staying, going back to school for another year, okay? And people would say, oh, well, you're going to miss out on the money. He really wasn't, because he's already at $4 million in revenue with his NIL deal. So now there's like not a real rush to leave, because you can still get these NIL deals and make some money. Now the NCAA can pay, so you can get money in both hands, if you will. One of the other things I think it happened is because now you have some competition. You saw what the NCAA saw what was going on with these NIL deals and how these players were getting this money, and then it was like, okay, I don't have to rush and whatever. Y'all ain't got to pay me. I'm gonna go ahead and sign this, and y'all can't do nothing about it because it's my name, my image, and my likeness. So I think they got a little worried there, and felt like they would have a little turn or something. So there's also been a little chatter about the players and trying to develop a union for this, since they have these limitations on the rosters and all of that type of stuff. There's also been talk about the booster situation. So now they have to change all of that, and now they have to devise ways of incorporating that into the NCAA, or making it a legit business and not just a handout like we have seen several times in the past and in several years in the past. So now it has to be a legit business. It can't just be a booster supporting a kid. They have to have some legit business entity surrounding these payouts. How do they do that? I think they can get around that. That's not something that's difficult, because they got around it when they came into the name, image, and likeness deal. So I think they can get around that. It's not really going to be an issue, I don't think, with them being able to do that. And again, getting back to it, a long time coming. I am happy for these athletes. Okay, I am definitely happy. Like I said, because I felt like they earned this money. I felt like they should have been getting paid a long time ago. Okay, and again, I say this because you have some kids that, let's say with the basketball thing, you have some in the football even, but you have some that go pro, and then they end up being okay, if you will. But then you also have some that are on the football team or on the basketball team that don't make the pros. So giving them some compensation for everything, all the work that they did while they were in college, supporting them while they were in college, is a little different. It's going to hit different. It's going to put some of these people in a better place than they would be right after graduation or right directly after leaving school. They might have a little bit of money to wiggle with, all right, have a little gray area to play with. All right? So I think it's a long time overdue, but I think it's a great thing. And I'm glad that it finally happened. I'm just as sad that it took this long. I'm also sad that it took the wedging in of the NIL deals to bring this about. Now, don't get me wrong. These are just my thoughts. I'm not saying that that's the exact thing that happened, but it's what I feel like. I feel like that's what happened. The NIL deals were beginning to get rampant, and NCAA was going to be losing money. I think because now they have all these kids getting extra money, and they're not worried about their name, image, so they take that money. But now you got to give them some of that money, which I think is great. Again, I think it was a long time coming. So kudos to the NCAA finally doing something, getting something right finally being able to support these young athletes in a way that they should have been supported but have not been supported for a long time. So again, landmark settlement, 2.8 billion. I'm sorry, I'm trying to give them too much money. 2.8 billion. All right. Schools can now begin to pay athletes, and it begins July 1, 2025, beginning of the new fiscal year for this year coming. Again, great thing and happy for all of those athletes. So, with that being said, before I close out, before I leave you guys, we know we talked the NBA Finals, and we know we talked about those Sixers, and I said we might get to a little bit of Sixers talk today. But we're going to get to a little something. I saw an article that says, again, we know the Sixers have the number 3 pick in the draft. All right, we've been hearing a lot of rumors talking about Kevin Durant, and most recently I saw Giannis. I don't think the Sixers are really looking to trade that pick. I think they're going to actually utilize that pick. We've also seen just recently, as early as this morning, that the Sixers are going to get flooded. And we know this. They're going to get flooded with calls about that 3rd pick to see if they want to move it. I don't think they should move it. I don't think they should. I don't think they will. All right. So, an article I found, we talked about who we liked early in the draft, early in the game. And we talked about the 2 kids from Rutgers, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. And there was another name, BJ Edgecombe, who were the most prominent 3 names that people talked about when they realized the Sixers had the number 1 pick after the draft lottery and all that stuff. So again, I always look to bring some stuff to you guys, some stuff that we can talk about. Even if you don't talk to me on the live show, you can catch this later on in the video and add your comments, and because I always check back with it. But this is the best Sixers 8 best NBA draft choices for that number 3 pick. All right, so it's 8 people that NBA draft people feel the Sixers could, or these could be the best choices. We're basically saying they probably wouldn't go wrong with any of these 8 choices. And we're going to start at 8. And this is Trey Johnson. All right. He's a long shot and may trade back. I don't think they're going to trade back. None of that, whatever. They talked about Larry Markkinen and Kevin Durant. Don't see it happening because the Sixers really don't have the wherewithal. They have some assets, but as far as players being moved with the assets, it's not really conducive for the Sixers right now. So we looked at Dylan Harper. We talked about Ace Bailey. This is Trey Johnson. All right. I don't remember where Trey Johnson is from. What school? I don't see it on here anyway. But anyway, he could end up being drafted in the top 5. Consideration for Philly at number 3. He arguably has a case to be the best shooter in the draft with his deep range and his lightning quick release. We really don't think he's a perfect match on a Philly perimeter that already has 2 smaller guards. Right. So he's kind of small. So we won't be looking at him too much there. At number 7, Derek Queen. This is the big guy I mentioned early in the game from Maryland. Not sure if that's really where they want to go, but Andre Drummond has expressed that he wanted to pick up his team option to return to the Sixers. Got to make sure he tries to stay healthy. Got to get Joel healthy. But we need a backup. We need a center. I don't know how the progression of Adam Bona is going to be. I won't know that until training camp starts, see what he worked on over the summer. But you definitely are going to be quickly needing a big in this rotation somewhere. Noah Esenge at 6, German player. Don't think that's going to happen. All right. We're moving to 5, Colin Murray Boyles, South Carolina forward. Nah. The biggest talk, though, here is number 4, Ace Bailey. Pretty much checks a lot of the boxes for the Sixers. A lot of them. Then there's the talk of the VJ Edgecombe. All right. And then there's another big from Duke, Colin Maluak. All right. But this VJ Edgecombe, he's number 2. Saw some things. He is that defender on that wing that the Sixers are really looking for. One of those guys that can score, can play some offense, but has no, has no issues with getting down and dirty on that defensive end. I saw some clips and saw some comparisons that kind of compared him to Andre Iguodala with better offense. Can't really argue that much because Andre Iguodala was a really solid defender, a really good defender on the wing. About the same size, okay, a little bit taller. Andre was 6'6". This kid is 6'4". He has a 6'7" wingspan, so he could do some things and could impress some people on that list. And then there's Khan Newpel, another Dookie, another big, not real big, 6'5", 219, athletic. But what I think the Sixers need at this number 3, and I could sit here and tell you what I think they need. Like I just told you, I think they need another backup, a big. I think they need another true point guard, but that is in the works. They worked out Dennis Smith. They brought in Lonnie Walker. So they're working on that aspect. Again, they need a big. I also feel like they need another wing defender, another defender on the perimeter that's going to be one of those guys, and it could be Edgecombe, that could come in and focus initially on defense and just get buckets wherever he can get buckets. All right, kind of like that Jonathan Kuminga. Then he might develop into something. So we'll definitely see what happens with the Sixers. Like I said, I don't think they're going to trade that pick. I also feel like even with all the talk, and we could sit here and say, oh, these are the best options possibly. By next week, you can have another 8 to 10 options. My guy, Cuzzo, Gendral, what's happening, homie? By next week, you can have another 8 to 10. By the week of the draft, you could possibly have another few. What I think needs to happen is I think it really needs to be downright dirty, do your homework, and just take the best available player at number 3. The best available player at number 3. It's what you do. And I just hope that our stars can come back and stay healthy. The season went the way it went. We saw how it went. And I was never one to take anybody completely off the hook. All throughout the season, I gave you the ups and downs. I gave you what I thought about everybody when I said this person has room for improvement and nobody's definitely out of the woods. Okay? The one thing I will say, though, and this is me giving you my interpretation from being a coach, being a player, and other things. As far as a coach and a player, as far as a coach, rather, the situation that Nick Nurse went through. And again, I'm not saying he was out of the woods. You won a championship, so you should have been able to manage this a little bit better than you did. But I get where the struggles were. When you go into a situation, you come into training camp and you say, okay, this is my roster. By the time you start playing real games, you looking and your starting lineup is changing from day to day, week to week. It's hard to be consistent when that happens. But again, I say I'm not saying he's completely out of the woods. Again, you are a championship coach, so you should have been able to manage this a little bit better. And I say, I understand the difficulties, but I still feel like you should have been able to manage this a little bit better. All right? The injury bug killed us. I'm not making that an excuse, but it killed us. We had to play with players down the stretch that didn't have a lot of NBA experience, players that were trying to make their way back into the NBA. So it was rough. It was rough. And again, like I say, as a coach, that is tough. But as a championship pedigree coach, Nick Nurse is considered by a lot of people top 5, top 10 coach in the league right now. Probably should have been able to manage it a little bit better. And I said, I'm not taking away that it was tough. But he had some pieces there. I think he could have managed it a little bit better. Because there were some games where we were in those games, games that we should have won, just didn't have the right pieces or just didn't play the right pieces to close it out and win those games. So hopefully we'll see a little difference in the roster. We know, and hopefully we will see a little difference in the roster. Also, hopefully we'll see some improvement in the play from our roster. And hopefully we can get through with not a lot of injuries. Nothing major that will keep players out for extended periods of time. But we've got to get these three guys on the court together. They were not on the court together for a long time. Kind of reminds you of the New Brooklyn Nets, okay, when they had KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. Couldn't get them on the court together. Situation hit us the same way. Couldn't get these guys on the court together. So hopefully, again, like I said, my ideal wish, and again, I'll break it down for you. We know Tyrese Maxey. We know his work ethic. We saw what he's done coming back to the league the past 2 years. So we know he'll be okay. Looking at Paul George, and this is just me going back again, and I go back to this because he came back from it. The injury, that leg injury that he had, that's very severe leg injury that he had. He came back from that and put his name back out there again. My wish was that those two guys, because we know their work ethic, we know they can do what they need to do to get back on the court, can get in touch with Joel, get with him over the summer, and get him on the same page as them so they can get together and come into training camp healthier than they have been. I think if we can do that, and if these guys can stay on the same page, I think we might see some of the things that we thought we were going to see last year. Some good things. You know, Quentin Grimes, I think, was a steal. We'll get Jared McCain back. And I think, again, the Sixers just have to make good on this draft pick. They have to make good on this draft pick. And I know we've probably said this before in other situations. But again, I'm going to say it again. They got to make good on this draft pick. Because if they don't, then it's going to be another long season. And it's just going to be a lot of confusion. And we don't really want that. We don't want that. And if it gets to be the confusion like that again, then we just going to sit back and people are just going to wait for the Eagles. All right? People may talk about the Phillies and the Phillies are a little sluggish right now, but the Phillies will be okay. It's the Sixers that are the concern. The Phillies will be okay. We already know the Eagles will be okay. The Flyers are making improvements. So now it's the Sixers' turn. They're the last ones to get on board with the making of some solid improvements, if you will. Okay? So we'll see what happens. All right? Draft day is coming, and like I said, you're definitely going to see more scenarios. You're going to hear more about people trades and all this other stuff. You're going to hear more about what the Sixers should do with that pick, yada, yada, yada. It's going to happen up until draft day when they make that pick or do what they're going to do with the pick. And again, I wholeheartedly think that they are going to draft someone at that pick. It's just a matter, like I said, at the particular time, with what they have and where they are as a team and the way the roster is at that point, number 3, you got to take the best player available, in my opinion, at that number 3 spot. And then you got to work that into whatever you already got and whatever else you get in the second round and put it together. And hopefully your stars will come in healthy and you can put it all together and we can make some noise next season. Folks, thanks everybody for tuning in. Cuzzo, Ginger 1, thanks for tuning in. My guy, Coach Lowell Rich, thank you for always tuning in every Monday. Today, your game schedule. Monday, baseball, MLB. We got Reds, Guardians, Marlins, Pirates, Cubs, Phillies, Rays, Red Sox, Braves, Brewers. Blue Jays, Cardinals, A's, Angels, Dodgers, Padres, Mariners, D-backs. In the WNBA, we got the Valkyries and the Sparks. In Game 3, Stanley Cup Finals, Oilers, Panthers. Not tomorrow, but the next day, Wednesday, because they're traveling now. NBA Finals resume in Indy. Game 3, 8:30 on ABC. folks, thanks everyone that tuned in. Like I said, even if you didn't chime in and you were listening in, I definitely appreciate the support. As always, you know where to find me at SportsRap CEO on Instagram, X, Threads, and TikTok. All right. Make sure you get the webpage, sportsrapradio.com. All right. Make sure you also check out the YouTube page. There are new videos up. There are old videos up. There's some shorts up there. Make sure you check them all out. Again, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up on the videos that you like, and then hit that bell so you'll be alerted when new content goes up. Also, in the link in my bio at SportsRap CEO here on Instagram Live now. When I shut down, when I stop this live, you can go there and get it. New link, and I'm going to post it again a couple times so you all can get it. Heat100radio.airtime.pro. That's where you can tune in. So you can hear my voice on Mondays around this time, as always. But all throughout the week, you can hear music. And again, I'm putting it out there. I know I've sent it out. Not many of you have gotten back to me yet. So I got music in here. But my guys, my DJs, all my DJ friends, or if you know anyone that's a DJ, anybody that's tuned in, please tell them to send me some mixes. They have to be MP3, all right, clean mixes. Send them to my Google, dsg2266@gmail.com. All right, so I can get them in the G Drive, not G Drive, in the Google Drive, and get them uploaded, and your music can be played on Heat 100 Radio, because you know we are internet and worldwide. All right, folks, be great on purpose. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'll talk to y'all next all week on social media and right back here next Monday. Peace.